Welcome, welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Green Nurse podcast at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse at Lumiere Clinic, where we bring hope and inspiration for growth and healing. We're here to change the dialogue and stigma around what it means to feel good or be high. Hi. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. We all deserve to feel good. We all deserve to heal. And healing looks different for a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. So here is what we do in the cannabis space as nurses and psychedelic nurses, because many of the nurses on our platform also work as psychedelic nurse guides. So here we go.
Change the paradigm of healthcare.
The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I'm the founder of Holistic Caring. We're based here in California, and we do educational programs and case management for patients on how to use cannabis therapeutically as a medicine.
We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high, hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing.
As the founder of Holistic Caring, I basically oversee the whole ship, and what we're doing is progressive education.
Cannabis actually supports all 11 organ systems, our immune system, and all the neurotransmitter signaling systems that give messages to tell our body to either do something or not do something. Because the plant was prohibited, it prevented health professionals, doctors and nurses from learning about cannabis as medicine.
I want to change the paradigm of healthcare and us paving the way into a new vanguard of medicine. And I'm excited to really bring this into light. There's a company called Canum that we're merging with, and we will now be doing global education.
It's about education, it's about empowerment, it's about teaching people how to feel good, bridging the gap from what they're not getting from traditional medicine, utilizing different plant medicines, adaptogens, tips, tricks, hugs, and nugs of information to support and nourish the most important system in our body.
And it's a lot of soul work, a lot of love, a lot of discipline, and meditation. I'm using my life work as a testimony to others to learn how they can be their own hero and then go help heal the world.
And we are, as nurses, the game changers. All right, everyone, here we go. This is going to be a really, really exciting show. My name is Sherry Tuckus, and I'm the Vice President of Nursing at Holistic Caring and the Green Nurse. I am a cannabis nurse, patient advocate, activist, and a passionate podcaster here to change the paradigm of healthcare. So today's guest is going to take us on a journey in the psychedelic space, discussing LSD and psilocybin. I'm proud to introduce you all to Coach Micheal Brooks. He's the founder of DIYECS, and we're going to talk about what that means in a minute. And he is a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. He educates and empowers patients on psychedelic medicines for biopsychosocial spiritual healing. His mission is to help people get into the Thrive Zone, guiding on the safe use of entheogens for healing. Coach Micheal's personal experience with microdosing in 2015 helped him break his alcohol addiction and kickstarted his journey towards lifelong health and wellness. Today, he's a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, is in the best shape of his life, and ready to help clients achieve their goals. So I want to just get started really quickly and just say that as clinicians, as nurses, we do have a responsibility to educate on safe consumption, as well as how we take care of our endocannabinoid system when utilizing psychedelics and cannabis as medicine. Specifically psychedelics, if you're going to be microdosing or larger dose journeys, really requires you to understand the endocannabinoid system because it is completely effective. I've been working with Coach Micheal for the past 10 weeks. I'm here to disclose, and I've embarked upon a new microdosing journey using Coach Micheal's protocol to help me process some heavy emotions and understand how a patient may benefit from working as a psychedelic coach in the psychedelic movement as it continues to evolve. So I'm extremely grateful to have Micheal on today to share his compelling story of healing as we learn about the benefits of microdosing both LSD and psilocybin. Welcome, Micheal.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Sherry. I'm excited to connect again and support you and just really excited to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So, Coach Micheal, I usually start off my shows with clinicians that come on, and I always say, listen, you didn't wake up one day randomly and said, hey, I'm going to be a psychedelic coach, or even go into nutrition. There's usually something compelling that leads us on that journey. So I really want to understand, and I'm sure our viewers out there want to understand too, when did your health and wellness journey begin? And then we'll dive a little bit into psychedelics.
Yeah, absolutely. So it really started. So when I graduated high school, I weighed about 315 pounds. And that was really some generational trauma had sort of manifested into that. And myself being, young and 18 and really not knowing, I thought food, my knowledge of food would help me. So I started my journey by actually going to culinary school. Because I thought if I learned more about how to prepare food and how food worked, it would ultimately help me lose weight. Well, that wasn't necessarily, a perfect world, right? But I was 18, and that's what I thought. And so that was really the me embarking on this journey that's been, close to, 30 years now.
Wow. I thought you were 30. Are you just 30?
No, I just turned 46.
There you go. And do you see what health, wellness, plant medicine, and working all the biopsychosocial spiritual tools can do for you? Micheal, you look great. You look great. You look vibrant. So, so here we go. You started into nutrition, and for the new people out there, micronutrients and nutrition is one of the most important things when you're taking care of your endocannabinoid system. And we're going to be talking about that next week on our show. But let's lead into, you started using nutrition. Then what? What happened? How did psychedelics kind of pop in there?
Yeah. So going to school and really just, learning more along the lines of cooking techniques. But I went to Johnson & Wales University, and we had a 4-day school week. And then we were supposed to spend the next 3 days working in restaurants or our related hospitality field. That wasn't necessarily the case. And it was actually a large party school. And my circle of friends, we really became, we started really experimenting with psychedelics. So I would say my late teens, very early 20s, it was a different time, but we were doing lots of experimentation with ecstasy, MDMA, LSD, psilocybin. We were doing mescaline. That was really, and lots of cannabis as well. That was really my social group at that time. And then really once I graduated from college, I left the psychedelics behind. I still used cannabis, but it was something that I just sort of, felt like, I'm an adult now.
Right.
And we don't do that.
Right. I got to be good.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, part of the construct.
Right. But yeah, part of the construct of, really, truly, can you imagine if we started educating people on what we've learned at an earlier stage, and can you imagine if we had the information that we have now and how many people that we could have really helped? So this is just a really powerful movement. So here you are in college.
Yeah.
You've been, experimenting and utilizing, and then, you've gotten older and you decided to put that behind.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
Yeah. So fast forward after working in the restaurant industry, the hotel industry for about a decade, I was basically a full blown alcoholic. And I was really struggling to overcome that addiction. I spent several years, trying everything from, multiple AA meetings a day, hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, going to religious ceremonies and having people pray for me. I mean, you name it. I was trying everything. I was desperate. And I had a colleague friend who was a bartender, and he was a very much a functional alcoholic as well, except he took dry January off. And so I sat him down one day and I was like, listen, there's got to be a trick to this. You can't drink every day in December and then just stop. And he basically told me at that time, and this was 2015, so there wasn't really a whole lot of information about microdosing at that time. And he basically was like, the secret is I eat acid every day. And I was like, really? I was like, you have to explain this to me. And so he basically, told me about how he was, taking little hits of blotter paper and cutting them up, and he would just take acid every day, and that would give him the ability to not drink. So yeah. So I was at wit's end, right? So I really did some research and behind, how else I could implement that. I was really setting my intention, before that became a popular word. And I decided to do that along with a 21-day sugar detox diet. So once again, this was before we started using the word ketogenic. It was really just a sugar reduction diet. So to sort of combat the alcoholism from a biological, right? So alcohol converts to sugar, and then using the LSD as sort of the mental fortitude. And basically I was able to not drink for 45 days as I ran this program. And by the end of that, not only was I able to stay sober for that entire time, but really it brought to my attention the memory of why I was drinking like that in the first place. And that really goes to show, right? Yeah, that really showed the power of this. And so once I realized why I was repeating this behavior, why I was drinking this way, and I knew that what it was stemming from, and I had the ability to go sober for that long, so I was no longer physically addicted to alcohol. I was able to just quit, and I've been sober ever since.
Congratulations. That is absolutely amazing. So here's the thing too. So you have to think about when you're coming off of alcohol. As we know, this is going to be a little education for y'all out there on the endocannabinoid system. Alcohol is toxic to all 11 organ systems. The minute it hits our lips, our body says, oh no, you don't belong here. And it goes to your liver to be detoxified out. The other thing that happens in your brain, that there is research, and I will pull this up, not today's show, that shows that when you consume alcohol, I'm not sure how many ounces, I think it's 2 to 3 ounces, your brain starts to create neurotransmitters, the cannabinoid receptors, cannabinoid CB1 receptor, looking for the anandamide molecule to come in and protect the brain. So just think of how intelligent our body is. I call it our smart body. Alcohol hits our lips. The body says, no, thank you. It's time to get rid of it. It goes to the liver to detoxify. The brain says, oh no, you need to be protected. Let's create more receptors looking for anandamide. That is why cannabis is such a good solution as well when people are coming off of alcohol. And we've helped a lot of people come off of it. But we're going to get back to psychedelics because cannabis also supports psychedelic use as well when we talk about the endocannabinoid system. So that is absolutely fascinating. So your background with plant medicine, let's talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah. So part of my journey through the hotel industry, I ended up in California for several years. And I, along with my older brother who was living in California at the time, we ended up under Prop 215, cultivating cannabis in California during 2003, 2006. And that really that sort of opened my eyes quite a bit to changing inputs to outputs, right? This was very early on in the cannabis industry, and there wasn't a whole lot of knowledge out there, right? You couldn't just watch YouTube videos, right? YouTube wasn't even around, right? And so it was very word of mouth, or you had to do a lot of experimenting with your grow, right? You had to look at different nutrients, different, how far away the lights you're moving from your plants, all these things, right? There was no, and we logged it every day, like all of these things. And that's really what made me realize, well, if we can manipulate these plants by giving them more sun or more nutrients, I can do the same thing for my body. And that's really started getting me to look holistically at everything, that it wasn't just diet and exercise, but it was the air I was breathing. It was the sunlight I was getting, and it was the rest I was receiving, because plants love to sleep as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely amazing. So the rest, so I'm going to bring this up again, right? So this has to do with the fight or flight response and the relaxation response. We are either in one or the other. Think about that. You're either in fight or flight, or you're in the relaxation response. And the bottom line, the more studying that I'm doing with this, is the relaxation response is where ultimate healing begins. The relaxation response is the space that is easiest for us to process emotion for healing. And that's really, really critical. And psychedelics can help us get to that space. And we're going to talk about how and why. We're going to talk about the difference between LSD and psilocybin and how you actually work with patients. But the other thing I want to know too is how did you start to get into the space of working with patients? That would be a good one. And then we're going to talk about I love the name of your clinic. It's, amazing, the name of it. It's DIYECS Health. And I'll let you tell our visitors what that means, because I looked it up and put it in the notes.
Yeah. So it's, it stands for, it's DIYECS is how I pronounce it, but it stands for do it yourself, enjoy consistent success. It's kind of funny that I'm talking to you and have met you and have this relationship, and I didn't even put the ECS part together until we were actually joking about it, and it didn't even dawn on me. But yeah, it totally makes sense, and it's relatable. But that's really what I do as a coach, right? Is I try to empower people to do what's in their own best interest for their health. Right. And that's holistically, like, food is medicine, sleep is medicine, movement is medicine. Really work with individuals and make that sustainable and long lasting and develop those positive habits. And then really, once you have a grasp on that, I truly believe that you're able to enjoy, consistent success. Right. It's not you're not always going to be perfect and everything's not going to be, rainbows and unicorns every day, but you will be, more likely to have success than not.
Absolutely. More good days than bad. So for our viewers, because I know a lot of them are very interested, like I'm a psychedelic nurse, but I've never worked with LSD before until now as a patient and a client. So let's talk about the difference, because I do have a lot of experience with ketamine and psilocybin, but not with LSD. So this was a new journey for me. So we'd really love our viewers to understand the difference between the two, how they work, and how you actually work with patients to coach them on this.
Yeah. That's a great question. So molecularly, right? LSD and psilocybin both are very similar to serotonin. What makes LSD a little different is its half-life. So psilocybin, your body metabolizes in about 6 hours. So for any of the viewers who've had a journey, right, that journey typically lasts about 6 hours. LSD is, a 12 to 14 hour experience, right? So it takes your body about that long to metabolize the molecules. So when we're talking about microdosing specifically, right, my day is a whole lot closer to 12 to 14 hours than it is to 6. So you really have those effects lasting throughout the day. The other, thing I like about LSD in particular, and once again, we're talking about micro levels. And so I think with micro levels, dosage is really, really key. And so by having a titrated, we use a titrated liquid LSD, we're able to really dial in your dosage. So whether you're using 5 micrograms, 6 micrograms, 8 micrograms, 10 micrograms, we can really do that. And because we're also bio individual.
Yep.
Why I prefer that over psilocybin. So, with the mushrooms, the cap is a little more potent than the stem. Each harvest, it's a fungal, it's biological, right? It's going to be a little different every time.
Like cannabis.
Yeah, very much so. So, and alkaloid profiles, right? So how cannabis has cannabinoids, mushrooms have alkaloids. So they're always slightly different. They're always, a little off. So, with LSD, we can be very, very consistent. And then, the other reason I really do, so a lot of my people I work with want, weight loss is a goal, right? For a lot of people. And so psilocybin has to be digested and your body turns it into psilocybin. And that's really, that process is enzymes and it's stomach heavy. Right. So LSD is able to bypass that. It goes straight into your blood. So you bypass your GI system. And so sometimes there's a little discomfort with when you're doing mushrooms. So some people, we want to try to avoid that sometimes. So
want to avoid all the unpleasant experiences because, it can be, you feel it on multiple different levels, specifically in your body. So the difference too, so one is actually biologic and one is actually synthetically made. The difference between the two, they work on different receptors, correct? In the brain, serotonin.
Yeah. So they're both what we call 5-HT2A agonists. So they both activate those, those levels. So they're almost identical molecularly, right? So LSD has one extra, I think it's a carbon offshoot. But yeah, they're very, very similar. And if you were to look at them molecularly, like with serotonin next to them, you're like, I can't hardly tell the difference at all.
There you go. So here's another question. So basically, when you are working with a patient, you do a consultation and you help them to choose whatever might be in their best interest to have the experience that they're looking for. So one of the things that's really important too is discussing the difference between microdosing dosage and a full journey dosage. So the microdosing dosage for the LSD, you said could be 5 micrograms, 10 micrograms, right? And you determine that by working with them. But what would a full journey be? What is a full journey?
So with LSD, that's typically, we would start that at 100 micrograms. So they're taking anywhere between a 20th and a 10th of what we would begin a ceremony or macro journey with. I typically when I do LSD ceremonies, right, I'm probably in the 150 to 200 microgram range. Yeah. That's just me personally, but I think they start. We most people consider them starting around 100.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And what about mushrooms? How do you like to start off? What is your recommendation for those that want to microdose versus those that want to take their first deep dive?
Yeah. That's so typically with psilocybin, we do a 100 milligrams of material, right? And so I typically have people start there, and then once again, I'm a big believer in starting low. Start low, go slow. And then we just continue to titrate up. So they would go from 100 milligrams to the next dose day, 125 milligrams to 150 until they feel like, oh, this is the effect I want. And typically I describe that effect as, for the coffee drinkers, right? So basically that sort of that feeling you get when you drink a half cup of your first cup of the day, that first half cup you get where you're not buzzy yet, but you're like, oh, I'm awake now. I start to feel, right. It's that Folgers in your cup kind of feeling. Right. And then the moment you feel that's really where I like people to be at. So I call it very, very low perceptual.
There you go. So taking a microdose is taking a dose that is below the threshold of being impaired, right? So you notice it, but you're not like, oh, I can't do anything, right? So it's really, really supposed to help you have a better day and help you to process emotion and to get into flow states and to be able to respond instead of react, to be able to look at yourself, be able to not allow the outside world to influence how you feel. So it's really, really a powerful substance when people use. So let's talk about the protocol that you use for LSD, because this is the protocol that you put me on. And it's amazing. So let's talk about how you take a patient on a journey when they're going to microdose. Specifically, I don't mind talking about my journey at all. So
So I typically like to follow, just for quality of life, like overall health and wellness. It's what's called the Fadiman protocol, and it was named after Dr. James Fadiman, who was a researcher for LSD going back to the 60s in Menlo Park. And when the federal government, decided to schedule it as Schedule 1, he, instead of not practicing it anymore, he sort of went to the underground and continued to work with people and collected a bunch of anecdotal information from people. And really that was sort of, he looked at things. And so it's an every third day. So what we have is we have a dose day. And then because of the half-life, right, it's still in your system the next day. And a lot of people actually prefer the next day. We call it an afterglow day. So they have this still energized and feeling good. And then the third day, it's totally out of your system at that point. So it's like a tolerance break. And
a normal day. So you have dose day, glow day, normal day, right? What did dose day look like? What does glow day look like? So you compare how you feel in your mind, body, and spirit, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's, as a coach, right? Well, I really believe in trying to make data-driven decisions, right? Let's do this. Let's find out what works best for you. Let's document as much as we can. And then let's sort of make adjustments, reset. Let's look at areas, opportunities for improvement. Let's see what's working well for you. Let's expand on those areas. And I think it works well,
Well, I've been blown away. So here we go. I'm going to keep asking you these amazing questions because it's important. I really feel that if people had this information, they'd be able to make well-informed decisions. So why do you think psychedelics are the key to reaching our optimal existence? Or a better way of saying that, helping us to manifest, to create agency, to evolve into the best version of ourselves. So why do you think that? Why do you think?
Really, we'll talk about it in a couple of ways, but really it enables you to connect your mind, body, soul. And so microdosing specifically, for a lot of people allows them that brain body connection. It allows you to sort of connect. I think we live in a time where we're very cerebral. We get into our heads. We're looking at our phones, right? We have all these, distractions happening. And we sort of lose sense of ourself and our body and how, right, we're connected with that. And then for the larger journeys, right, and this is really where I view, particularly doing mushroom journeys, right, as my sacrament, right. I really feel like it enables me to connect with my higher power and really understand my connection with the universe, my connection with other humans, my connection with the planet. In a way that I really feel like it's a religious experience. So by encompassing all three of those aspects, right, mind, body, soul, I really think it allows us to be the best versions of ourselves.
I love that. And so let's talk a little bit about intention setting and what's the benefit of that. I love hearing your perspective because you've been doing this and then we've been doing this, and so it's just really nice to overlap how nurses do it and how coaches do it and the importance, because along across the board, it's all about safe consumption and good outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Same with cannabis. We don't want anyone to have a bad experience because we know that what this works, we know that it helps.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So really, before I work with anyone, it's really important that we sort of establish the vision, right? Like I for the microdosing, I call it a wellness vision, right? Where do you anticipate seeing yourself in the next 60 days, that the next 3 to 6 months, right? The next year, and really, let's envision that, and then sort of work backwards almost with microdosing and microdosing because of, it gives you that serotonin boost, that feeling of happiness and optimism and hope, right? And then we're also changing your neuroplasticity, right? That's another thing that's really going on while this is happening, right? So you're able to create habits more elegantly and establish them in a much more efficient way, right? So you can start to really make those positive changes. And then
I
go
love
ahead.
that word neuroplasticity, because to me, what it means is my brain is communicating with each other, right side, left side, communicating. So you're not making decisions from a bigger perspective, as opposed to making decisions knee-jerk reaction, right? The neuroplasticity really helps you to how to have that pause and how to process a lot quicker than usual, for sure.
Yeah.
It's a good word.
Yeah, a lot of times we're just running on this what they call the default mode network, right? We're just defaulting into this natural loop of life, and psychedelics really allows you to break that loop in a lot of ways, and not just psychedelics, right? You can meditate, pick up a meditation practice, and that works as well, right? There's breath work, all these other modalities as well. I just, psychedelics, it does it in a way that just, like I said, it accelerates it.
Totally accelerates it. I completely agree with you. So here we go. How can psychedelics help form a non-psychotherapy perspective? That's a really good one. So when we go into psychotherapy, why are we going into psychotherapy? To learn about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
To learn about ourselves, to learn about what makes us who we are, how we can process emotion. It's hard being human. It's really hard, right? You got these meat suits that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
And so, engaging in psychotherapy is one aspect of it. So how can psychedelics help us with that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think there's, that's where a lot of the research has been, with what, MAPS is doing with their clinical trials regarding PTSD, and what John Hopkins has been doing as well. So like I said, I think psychotherapy is great, right? Talking to someone and trying to figure out why we behave these ways and why we have these feelings, and overcoming. Let's face it, it's a lot of it's either trauma or drama from earlier in our life, and what psychedelics, allows people to do, especially with, for me personally with LSD, is it really brings these memories to my surface, right? And it allows me to see these memories in a very clear way. And then once I understand, once I can see that, like what happened to kind of create this repetitive behavior, right? This default mode network around that experience, then I can readdress it and do that. And what I mentioned earlier, the me being overweight, right? And I'm going to use this as an example, right? So me being overweight when I graduated high school was generational trauma. And what I mean by that is when I was a young child, my mother was bulimic. So I, as a young child, I saw the binging, right? I didn't see the purging that was done in private, but I saw that, right? But I didn't remember any of this. So I couldn't have gotten back to that point doing just psychotherapy alone, or maybe I could have, but maybe I would have taken years and years and years of me talking. But when I had a journey, and I was able to re-see what was going on in my childhood, and that's when I was like, oh, that is why I have this this desire in me to consume, whether that was food, whether that's alcohol. Like, I mean, sometimes I'm a workaholic. I've really, put mindfulness to that as well. And that's just who I am. And why that is because, right, that those first, 5 or 6 years of my life, I had that experience. And I don't think psychotherapy, I don't know if I ever would have gotten there with psychotherapy alone.
I hear you, because I will share, I will disclose as well. I've been involved with psychotherapy for a very long time. I have ADHD. I have a history of trauma myself, PTSD. I've experienced medical and pharmaceutical trauma. Cannabis saved my life. Psychedelics got me living again. So here's a big shoe drop for y'all. And I almost want to use my machine here to make a funny noise, but I won't. I had agoraphobia. Right. So all the intense treatment in the world, all the cannabis in the world, none of it addressed it. But guess what did? Psychedelics. Psychedelics helped me to address something that I totally didn't understand. How could I be afraid to leave my house? Why do I have to make excuses to not leave my house? Why is everything being delivered? Why, right? Yeah. Why am I finding other people to give my kids rides? So it goes on and on and on, where the avoidance of interacting with the outside world became very, very real and very comfortable, to the point that it was detrimental to my health, right? So when you have agoraphobia, sometimes you don't participate in things that you should be participating in to keep you healthy. Mm-hmm. And that was even going to the doctors, going to the dentist. It was just amazing. And I didn't understand it until I started to embark upon the psychedelic journey of really, really taking the deep dive to get to the root cause. And the root cause, basically was trauma. It was trauma that I experienced not only as a child in the medical system, almost dying there. I almost died when I was a teenager, totally forgot about that. Mm-hmm. And then having this illness that I got in 2012. So it was repetitive trauma related to pharmaceuticals and pills and procedures that led me into the space of becoming agoraphobic. Mm-hmm. And I can honestly say I can go out of the house easily and effortlessly today and really, truly living a high quality of life. I'm living my best life. And so that's why I'm here today, to share this information with all of you. You all deserve to feel good. Every single one of you. So here we go. So here's another good one. Where do you see psychedelics in the next 1, 3, and 5 years?
Yeah. That's another good question. So as I mentioned earlier, right, MAPS has just finished up their phase 3 trials for treatment-resistant post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So they've been doing, human trials specifically with veterans, and so that, I really think that the FDA in probably the next 18 months is going to medicalize MDMA, okay. Right? So there will be some system in place, through traditional healthcare, right? That you will be able to access this if you have some condition, some qualifying conditions. Right. I also think probably in the next, if 24 months after that, so we're probably looking, at about 3.5 years down the road, I think psilocybin will become medicalized as well. And that's, for pain management, for depression, for a lot of reasons, and possibly some addiction as well. So there's some really amazing research coming out. As far as LSD goes, the war on drugs, you're a cannabis nurse. You understand that the power that sort of con job has had on everyone. I'm not 100% sure. But that being said, that's through a medical lens, right? Mm-hmm. We're looking at the legalization of these things. There's also this spiritual lens, right? And so I'm a member of a spiritual organization, a church, called the Association of Entheogens Practitioners. So as I mentioned before, we view this as our sacrament. So I think in a lot of ways, right, there's some precedent out there. There's a lot of things happening now to where people are organizing this as part of their religious practice.
Right.
Because of the First Amendment, right? The first part of the First Amendment is freedom of religion. So, hopefully, that starts to really take shape as well. And I think, Colorado is going to set some precedent with that in the next year as they've decriminalized and doing some things. Oregon as a state, right? And once again, we're sort of following that cannabis model in some ways, right? Where states are starting to
Right.
to sort of own it as opposed to the federal government. But I do think the federal government's going to legalize some of these psychedelics. Honestly, I think they're going to do it before they legalize cannabis.
Well, they've decriminalized some of them already, some of the psychedelics already. I mean, I know there's a couple places in Massachusetts that they've decriminalized. I mean, it's still illegal, but you're not going to be thrown in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Have some fungus that you want to throw on your pizza. Have a mushroom pizza. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is, and and it is interesting. And the part that's really, really sad and scary about Schedule 1 that I'm going to disclose is that kids think we're lying to them. Think about that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a child that I took care of over the course of a year who is 17 years old, who was hooked on heroin. We got him off of heroin using cannabis as medicine. And during my session with him and the family, I asked, what made you decide to use heroin? And you know what he said to me? He said to me, because it was on Schedule 1 with cannabis, and cannabis is medically legal in many, many states for medicine and recreation. So if you're lying about cannabis, then you must be lying about all these other substances. That is from the mouth of a child.
Yeah.
That's very, very scary.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is this kid could have almost died. And putting in the time and energy and honestly, psychedelics could help him too. This is the thing. People that have big time addictions, it is hard. It is so hard. And if we can help them expedite that process, I think we have an obligation to explore it. Right.
No, absolutely. Like I said, it saved my life, right? Like I was putting vodka in my coffee in the morning, right? I mean, I was on that level of drinking.
Yeah.
This was, 2000, this was 8 years ago. I mean, if I was still drinking that way, I don't know if I'd be alive today if I was still drinking at that level. If not, I would not be in good shape. I assure you.
Yeah.
So, right. Like we need to, the reality is we're at a healthcare crisis in this country, right? Mental health, physical health,
Sad. Right?
half of America's obese, right? The whole thing, right? Like
suicide, addiction, anxiety, and depression. Sad, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very sad. And then they have the standard American diet. It's another sad thing.
Yeah.
We are the wealthiest country and the sickest out of all of them. We need to take a look at that for sure. And so I am so grateful for the work that you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about your company and what is your goal? What is your goal with your company? And I'm going to put it right up here again.
Yeah. It's, like I said, what I'm doing is honestly, I think, we have to make some serious changes to the way we view healthcare. And I really like, my goal is to just empower people to make the holistic changes in their life to live their best self. So let's look at your diet. Let's look at your sleep and your sleep hygiene. Let's look at your movement. Let's look at your mindfulness. And then, if we need to incorporate, plant medicine, whether that, be psychedelics or, cannabis or whatever, right? Let's, I know I'm openly, breaking the law, and yet it's so important to me to do this in a way that's safe and honest and genuinely, helps people, right? Like I don't really, it's to the point, right? I mean, COVID sort of pushed me right beyond, right? I was like, I can't sit on the sidelines anymore and just focus on me. It's time for me to really take what I've learned through this 30-year journey I've been on, for my health and wellness, overcoming addiction and losing weight and getting, physically fit and sharing that with people. And if that makes me a criminal, then so be it.
So here we go. We're going to start to wrap up. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we also have on your website, and I'm going to try to share it. I'm going to try to share your website really quickly, because one of the things that I really loved on your website is you did have nutrition.
Mhm.
You had, you have a free initial consult. If you
Mhm.
decide to book a session, like a package session, you can get
Mhm.
15% off with Green Nurse 15.
Yeah.
But also on your website, you have synergistic supplements for microdosing, right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And so let's talk just a little bit about that really quickly, and then we're going to wrap up. And I've got one more question after that. So synergistic supplements. What does that mean?
Yeah. So those are different, things that ultimately, just take care of yourself. So, typically, we're deficient in omega-3s. So I always recommend a high quality omega-3 if you're doing this, right. That sort of helps your brain, helps this neuroplasticity.
And you guess what else with omega-3, y'all? Omega-3 supports the endocannabinoid dome. Oh, you ready for that? So this is a healthy fat, right?
Mhm.
We make internal endogenous cannabinoids, and it requires us to have a nice balance of omega-3 to omega-6. So you just think about these supplements, healthy fats. Our cells have a thin layer of fat around them. And think about fat soluble vitamins need to get into the cell. So we need to have nice cell permeability to be able to feed micronutrients into our cells. So omega-3s are great.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. What else?
Yeah. So I recommend a B vitamin as well. A B complex, really. And then, there's a couple more in there. It's a free download from the website. And
Right.
I actually cite quite a bit of PubMed publications in that. And then I also link to them as well, to really let you know why I feel like these supplements would really, you would be benefited by including them in a microdosing protocol.
There you go. Okay, so I'm going to share your website really quickly.
Okay.
And let's just see how this looks. Here we go. Learn how to microdose. This can change your life. A psychedelic approach to health, wellness, and spirituality. Right? So discover more. So he has an extremely robust, beautiful website. You do podcasting?
I do. Myself and Coach Laura, she lives in Boulder. She's a partner with me in this. We have a podcast called Microdosing the Podcast, and we share health and wellness information. So, but yeah, so if anyone goes there, right, they can absolutely book a free consultation, and we can just really figure out if we're a good fit, if we're a good partnership to work together. And that's really how I view working with people. It's a true partnership, right? I'm here to really, help you, not only understand microdosing, but other aspects of your life, and really a way to that you can just become the best version of yourself possible.
Excellent. What I love as well, Michael, is that you also have a private area where people can log in when they're working with you. So you have a private section where people get a username and a password. That's where education happens. That's where protocols are kept, and it's completely. And I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You've done a great job. So
Yeah.
client login, about us, our services blog, and podcast.
Yeah.
Learn how microdosing can change your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the client portal, it's all HIPAA compliant. So that's another, my job is to make it as safe as possible. So I know some of the things we're talking about, right? So by it being HIPAA compliant, right, that really gives us that extra layer of security.
Absolutely. And finally, as we close out, what is the best advice you can give someone if they're thinking about using psychedelics as medicine?
Yeah. So really, I think, first and foremost, right, we live in a time, and unfortunately, I think this is due to the scheduling, right? Always test your product, right? Like I cannot emphasize that enough. Or, everything I do is test that. I actually show people the test results I just want, like I said, we live in a time with this fentanyl thing going on and all this other nonsense. It's terrifying.
It is.
And then, if you are doing, whether you're microdosing or macrodosing, setting your intention is so key. And then if you're doing a large journey, right, make sure you have a sitter at the very least, someone to sort of just, you're nothing bad's going to happen, but it's such a unique experience. It's always right. You're playing with your consciousness. So you really should have someone there, and then integrate after that, right? Really, really integration is key to you really understanding, right, what happened and how you can integrate that into your life.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And so the other thing that I'm just going to add to it is CBD. CBD is amazing before the journey and after the journey. And I want you to think about this. We're playing with brain chemistry. Okay. Your brain is really, really important. So the endocannabinoid system is the largest neurotransmitter signaling system. It regulates all 11 organ systems, including the neurotransmitters, specifically serotonin. So really, really important to be thinking about using CBD. And we have a special Spring 20 for 20% off all products and programs at LumiereClinic.com. So I just want to say, Michael, it has been a pleasure having you on. Coach Micheal will be doing some things in our network soon. He's going to do a little webcast for us.
Yeah.
Vouch for his services. I have been working with him. As a matter of fact, I got to schedule a follow-up with you. Just want to say thank you so much for being on. And for our viewers, I want you all to remember what it's all about. It is truly about living your best life and helping others do the same. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week for Clinical Conversations. Okay, stay on.
We're here to educate and empower patients to make choices that are best for them. We're also here to decrease stigma around what it means to feel good and be high. Hence the H for hope, I for inspiration, G for growth, and H for healing. The Green Nurse is a holistic cannabis nurse that teaches on the endocannabinoid system and the safe utilization of cannabis and other progressive tools to help people reach a better quality of life.
I was cannabis agnostic for many, many years. And the more research I did, the more I discovered that cannabis is this amazing medicine.
I was told that I had a 4-stage pancreatic cancer. The doctor really told me he couldn't do anything else. He gave me her name and she called me and she came to my house. She started to give me cannabis. My oncologist was puzzled because he couldn't find the cancer anymore.
All of the learning that we get comes from the Green Nurses Group, comes from their support, comes from their guidance. I trust everything that she says.
Simply meet people where they're at. The plant doesn't, stress to grow, so we don't stress to share it. We're healing people.
Cannabis has been used as a medicine for tens upon thousands of years. Here's the big message. Cannabis needs to be federally legal. We need to have laws that are the same across all 50 states that allow access to anyone and everyone who wants to utilize this powerful medicine.